I always believed birthday parties were supposed to be celebrations. You invite people you care about, share food and laughter, and create memories worth keeping. That's what I imagined for my 34th birthday that warm Saturday in suburban Portland. Nothing extravagant. Nothing complicated. Just a simple gathering in our backyard with friends, cold drinks, and the smell of grilled food drifting through the air. How spectacularly wrong I was. Looking back now, I realized that day was never going to be about celebration. It was going to be a reckoning, one I didn't see coming until it was too late to stop it. My name is Jonathan Hayes, and for 7 years, I'd been married to a woman named Rebecca. Rebecca Hayes. Even now, months later, her name still feels strange in my mouth, like a word I've said so many times it's lost all meaning. We met at a marketing conference in Seattle during a rainstorm that trapped 200 professionals in a hotel lobby for 3 hours. She was magnetic even then, sharp-witted, confident, the kind of person who could command a room without raising her voice. I was drawn to her immediately, the way moths are drawn to flames, never considering that getting too close might leave you burned. Our early years were good. Better than good, actually. We traveled Barcelona, Tokyo, the beaches of Thailand, where we watched sunsets that looked like paintings. We renovated our first home together, a small craftsman bungalow in the Selwood neighborhood with creaky floors and a garden that Rebecca swore she'd maintain but never did. I didn't mind. I liked the work, liked building something with my hands, something tangible and real. She worked for Cascade Solutions, a mid-sized consulting firm downtown that specialized in human resources and organizational development. She was good at her job, excellent even. People respected her, listened when she spoke. She had a gift for reading rooms, understanding dynamics, knowing exactly what to say to make someone feel seen, or, if necessary, small. I worked as a civil engineer for the city's transportation department. Stable work, reliable income. Nothing glamorous, but I took pride in it. Designing infrastructure, solving problems, making sure bridges didn't collapse and roads could handle the rain that Portland threw at them 9 months out of the year. For a while we fit together. She brought spontaneity to my structure. I brought calm to her chaos. We hosted dinner parties where she sparkled and I grilled. We spent Sunday mornings reading separate sections of the newspaper in comfortable silence. We talked about having kids someday, maybe buying a bigger house closer to the mountains. But somewhere around year 5, things shifted. It was subtle at first, so subtle I convinced myself I was imagining it. She started working later, staying downtown for after-work drinks with colleagues whose names I'd never heard before. Her phone, once left casually on the counter, became something she carried from room to room, screen always facing down. She laughed less at my jokes and more at ones I wasn't part of. I ignored the new perfume that appeared on her dresser, expensive and floral, nothing like the subtle vanilla she usually wore. I ignored the yoga classes that somehow always ran 2 hours over. I ignored the way she started looking at me, like I was an obligation rather than a choice. By the time my birthday rolled around that September, our marriage had become a performance. We smiled in public, held hands when people were watching, posted carefully curated photos online that suggested everything was fine. Better than fine, actually. #blessed, #love, #grateful. But alone, in the quiet hours after midnight, when pretending became too exhausting, we existed in separate silences. She stayed up late on her laptop, blue light washing over her face. I went to bed early, staring at the ceiling, wondering when exactly we'd become strangers who shared a mortgage. Still, when she suggested throwing a birthday party for me, I agreed. Maybe I hoped it would feel like old times. Maybe I was just tired of fighting the erosion of us. Maybe I simply wanted one day where we could pretend the cracks weren't showing. "Let's do it in the backyard," Rebecca said one evening over takeout Thai food we ate in front of the television. "Nothing fancy. Just burgers, drinks, some of our friends. It'll be fun." Fun. That word felt loaded coming from her, but I nodded. The day started innocently enough. Morning light filtered through the curtains of our bedroom, warm and golden, the kind of light that makes everything look softer than it really is. Rebecca was already awake, scrolling through her phone, her face illuminated by the screen's glow. "Happy birthday, babe," she said without looking up. "Thanks," I replied, staring at the ceiling. She set her phone down and rolled toward me, pressing a quick kiss to my cheek. It felt transactional, obligatory, the kind of gesture that checks a box without requiring actual feeling. By noon, our backyard had transformed. String lights crisscrossed overhead, casting warm patterns even in daylight. Tables were arranged strategically, one for food, one for drinks, one for the cake Rebecca had ordered from that expensive bakery on Hawthorne. The grill sat waiting, charcoal ready to be lit, a cooler filled with ice and beer beside it. Rebecca moved through the space like a director preparing a set, adjusting chairs, repositioning flowers, checking angles as though someone might photograph it for a magazine spread. She'd changed into a sundress, pale blue fitted, the kind that made her look effortlessly elegant. Her hair fell in loose waves, makeup subtle but precise. She looked beautiful. That had never been the problem. Guests started arriving around 2:15. Familiar faces, mostly, co-workers from both our offices, neighbors from the street, a few college friends who'd stuck around Portland after graduation. They came bearing gifts I didn't need and well wishes that felt sincere enough. Rebecca was in her element immediately. She floated through the gathering with practiced grace, wine glass in hand like a conductor's baton, orchestrating conversations and laughter with perfect timing. She had a gift for this, for making people feel included, entertained, important. Rooms rearranged themselves around her. Conversations shifted when she approached. People leaned in when she spoke. I stood by the grill, tongs in hand, flipping burgers and hot dogs while trying to avoid the smoke that kept blowing directly into my face no matter which direction I turned. From my station, I watched her work the crowd, noticed the way people lit up when she directed her attention toward them. And I noticed something else too. Ethan Mitchell was there. Ethan, our neighbor from 3 houses down, the one with the perfectly maintained lawn and the golden retriever that barked at squirrels every morning at 6. He'd moved to the neighborhood about 8 months ago, something about a divorce, a fresh start, wanting to be closer to the hiking trails in Forest Park. He was friendly enough, waved when we passed on the street, offered to help when I was unloading lumber for a deck project. The kind of neighbor who seems helpful without being intrusive. Except lately, he'd been showing up more frequently. Rebecca mentioned him often. Ethan helped me carry in the groceries. Ethan recommended this great coffee shop. Ethan knows a guy who can fix the fence. Always Ethan. Always helpful. Always available. I told myself it was nothing. Neighbors help neighbors. That's how communities work. But watching them now, standing near the fence at the edge of the yard, drinks in hand, laughing at something only they found funny, watching the way she touched his arm, casual and familiar, I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "Hey, birthday boy," someone called out, pulling my attention back. "These burgers ready yet?" I forced a smile. "Just about." The party continued. Plates were filled. Conversations flowed. Someone turned on music, classic rock, safe choices, songs everyone could hum along to without thinking too hard. And Rebecca kept performing. It started small, the way Poison always does. Rebecca stood near the drink table, surrounded by 4 or 5 people whose faces I recognized, but whose names I'd have to think about for a moment. She was holding court, wine glass angled just so, voice carrying across the yard with practiced projection. "Oh my God, you guys," she said, laughing at something only she'd heard. "You should have seen Jonathan trying to assemble that bookshelf last month." A few people glanced my way, smiling already, ready for the punchline. I kept flipping burgers, jaw tight. 3 hours, she continued, shaking her head with exaggerated disbelief. 3 full hours, 2 instruction manuals, one in English, one he claimed was more detailed from some Swedish website, and at the end of it, the whole thing was leaning like the Tower of Pisa. Laughter rippled through the group. Someone snorted into their beer. "We had to call my brother to come fix it," Rebecca added. "And he's an accountant." More laughter. Louder this time. I told myself it was fine. Couples tease each other. This was just her sense of humor, her way of entertaining people. She didn't mean anything by it. Except she kept going. "And don't even get me started on the GPS incident," she said, warming to her audience now. "We were driving to the coast last summer, and Jonathan insisted, he knew a shortcut. Refused to use the navigation. 'I've got a great sense of direction,' he said. She did a mimicking voice that sounded nothing like me but got laughs anyway. We ended up on a logging road. In the dark. With no cell service. I thought we were going to end up as a true crime podcast episode. The group howled. Someone actually wiped tears from their eyes. I set down the tongs and took a long breath, feeling heat that had nothing to do with the grill spreading across my face. "Oh, and money management?" Rebecca continued, voice lilting with false sweetness. "Let's just say if financial common sense were currency, we'd be filing for bankruptcy." That one landed hard. People weren't just laughing now, They were cackling, delighted by the performance, entertained by the roast they hadn't expected at a birthday party. My birthday party. I stood there, smoke in my eyes, the smell of charred meat surrounding me, and felt something crack inside. Not rage. Not even anger, really. Just a quiet, clarifying exhaustion. I could have stayed silent. I usually did. 7 years of marriage had trained me well. Nod, smile, let it pass. Don't make waves. Don't embarrass her. Keep the peace. But it was my birthday. My party. And for once, just once, I wanted to respond. So when someone asked me to pass the mustard, I did, and added lightly, casually, with the same tone Rebecca had been using all afternoon. You know, at least my shopping habits don't require a second mortgage. Rebecca treats the mall at Bridgeport like it's an Olympic endurance event. The words hung in the air for exactly 2 seconds. Then everything changed. Rebecca's head snapped toward me so fast I heard her neck crack. Her expression transformed, smile vanishing, eyes going flat and cold, jaw setting with the kind of tension that precedes violence. She crossed the distance between us in 3 sharp steps. I didn't see her hand coming until it was too late. The slap cracked across my face like a gunshot. Every conversation stopped mid-sentence. Someone's beer bottle hit the ground, foam spreading across the grass. The golden retriever barked frantically from 3 houses down, sensing disruption in the social order. I stood there, mustard bottle still in my hand, my cheek stinging, my mind strangely blank and clear at the same time. Rebecca's face was inches from mine, her voice low and venomous. Don't you ever, ever mock my spending. You hear me? Not an apology. Not even an explanation. Just a warning. I looked at her, really looked at her, maybe for the first time in years, and saw someone I didn't recognize. Or maybe someone I'd been refusing to see clearly. I nodded once, slowly, and walked away. Not dramatically. Not angrily. Just away. Inside the house, the silence felt like a physical presence. I could hear the muffled sounds of the party continuing outside, awkward laughter resuming, conversations restarting with forced casualness, people pretending they hadn't just witnessed something deeply wrong. I went to the freezer and pulled out a bag of frozen peas, pressing it against my cheek. The cold helped. Not with the pain. The slap hadn't actually hurt that much, more shock than injury. But the cold gave my thoughts something to anchor to, something solid and real, while my mind spun through the implications of what had just happened. She hit me. In front of our friends. At my birthday party. And no one said anything. I stood there in the kitchen, peas numbing my face, and thought about the last year. Really thought about it, without the protective fog of denial I'd been wrapping around myself. The late-night phone calls she took in the bathroom. The new lingerie that never appeared when we were alone together. The sudden interest in hiking, Rebecca, who'd once complained about walking 3 blocks to the coffee shop. The way Ethan's name kept appearing in conversations, casual and frequent, like a song stuck on repeat. Ethan helped with the groceries. Ethan knows a contractor. Ethan recommended this restaurant. Always Ethan. I'd told myself I was being paranoid, insecure. That 7 years of marriage meant something, meant trust, meant she wouldn't. Through the window above the sink, I saw them. Rebecca stood near the back fence, partially hidden by the Japanese maple tree we'd planted 3 years ago. Ethan was with her. Too close. His hand on her lower back, possessive and familiar. She leaned into him, laughing at something, her body language completely different from the rigid anger she'd shown me minutes earlier. Soft. Open. Intimate. She touched his chest, fingers lingering. He said something that made her smile. That smile, the real one I hadn't seen directed at me in months. Then someone walked past my window, blocking the view. When I looked again, they'd separated, returning to the party from different directions, careful and practiced. I set down the frozen peas. My cheek had gone numb, but everything else suddenly felt sharp and clear. This wasn't new. This wasn't a mistake or a moment of weakness. This was a pattern, a choice, something ongoing and deliberate. The slap wasn't about my joke. It was about control. About making sure I stayed in my place, the punchline, the fool, the husband who didn't ask questions. I heard the back door open. Rebecca's voice carried through the house, bright and cheerful again, performing for whoever was listening. Just needed to grab more napkins. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, saw me standing there with the bag of peas, and had the audacity to look annoyed. "You're being dramatic," she said flatly. I stared at her. "You hit me. You embarrassed me. I made one joke. You'd been making them all afternoon." She waved a hand dismissively. "That's different." "How?" Because I'm actually funny, Jonathan. You're just mean. The gaslighting was so casual, so practiced, that I almost admired the skill of it. Almost. I'm going back out, she said, grabbing the napkins she'd supposedly come in for. Try not to sulk. It's your birthday. Act like you're having fun. She left. I stood there alone, listening to her laugh drift back through the walls, and made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. I was going to watch. To pay attention. To stop protecting myself from the truth with denial and hope. Because sometimes the only way forward is to see clearly, even when, especially when, what you're seeing hurts. The party eventually ended. Guests trickled away as the sun set, offering awkward goodbyes, careful not to mention what they'd witnessed. A few people hugged me with extra pressure, sympathy in their eyes but silence on their lips. No one wanted to acknowledge the elephant, or in this case, the slap, that had trampled through the afternoon. Ethan left last, shaking my hand with practiced firmness, thanking us for having him, acting like a normal neighbor at a normal party. Rebecca walked him to his car. They talked for 7 minutes by my count. I watched from the upstairs window, timing it, before she came back inside. We cleaned up in silence. She washed dishes. I took out trash. We moved around each other like polite strangers, choreographed avoidance perfected through years of practice. Finally, as I was folding the last of the chairs, she spoke. You really shouldn't have said that. I looked at her. Said what? About the shopping. About the mall. You spent 20 minutes making me the punchline of the party. She rolled her eyes, actually rolled them, like I was a child complaining about something insignificant. You're too sensitive. It was just jokes. Everyone was laughing. At me. Oh, grow up, Jonathan. I set down the chair carefully, precisely. You hit me. The words hung between us, undeniable. She didn't apologize. Didn't even look sorry. Just annoyed that I was still talking about it. You pushed me, she said finally. With a joke? With disrespect. And there it was, her reality, where everything was justified, where my boundaries were disrespect and her violence was correction. She turned and went upstairs. I didn't follow. I spent that night on the couch, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle around me and planning. Not revenge. Not yet. Just observation. The next morning, I told Rebecca I had to go into the office. Emergency situation with a bridge inspection report that needed filing before the Monday deadline. She barely looked up from her phone. Whatever. I've got errands anyway. I left at 8:30, drove to the office, parked in my usual spot, and then walked 2 blocks to a coffee shop where I sat by the window with a clear view of the parking lot. At 9:15, my phone buzzed. A location-sharing notification I'd secretly enabled on Rebecca's device 3 months ago during one of my paranoid phases. I'd felt guilty about it then, invasive and controlling. Now I just felt prescient. Her location showed home. Not moving. I waited. At 9:40, Ethan Mitchell's silver Honda Accord pulled into our driveway. I watched through the Find My Friends app as Rebecca's location stayed static while Ethan's moved toward her. Then both locations stayed together. Inside our house. For 3 hours. I sat in that coffee shop, drinking burnt espresso, watching those 2 dots overlap on my phone screen, and felt something inside me go very calm and very cold. This wasn't speculation anymore. Wasn't paranoia or insecurity. This was confirmation. When Ethan's location finally separated, moving back toward his own house, I drove home. Rebecca was in the shower when I arrived. I could hear water running, hear her humming, actually humming, like she didn't have a care in the world. I sat at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. Time to stop reacting. Time to start documenting. Over the next 2 weeks, I became someone I didn't recognize, methodical, patient, invisible. I went to work, came home, smiled at appropriate times, and said nothing about the truth I was assembling piece by piece like a prosecutor building an airtight case. Rebecca noticed nothing. Why would she? I'd spent 7 years being predictable, manageable, safe. She had no reason to suspect that anything had changed. But everything had changed. I started with her laptop, the one she left open on the kitchen counter while she showered, passwords saved in the browser, security questions I knew the answers to because I'd been there when she created them. Her email revealed everything. Hotel reservations under fake names, romantic messages that made my stomach turn, plans for a future that didn't include me. Can't wait until he finally figures it out and leaves. She'd written to Ethan 3 weeks ago. Then we won't have to sneak around anymore. They weren't even planning to hide it. They were just waiting for me to do the hard part, to be the one who ended things, who moved out, who looked like the quitter. That way she could play the victim, the abandoned wife, the woman whose husband just gave up. I took screenshots of everything. Downloaded message threads. Saved receipts from the hotel in Cannon Beach where they'd spent last Valentine's Day weekend. The same weekend Rebecca told me she was at a professional development conference in Sacramento. I found photographs too. Dozens of them. The two of them hiking at Silver Falls, kissing at that waterfront restaurant in Astoria, tangled together in bed somewhere I didn't recognize. Her face in those photos glowed with happiness I hadn't seen directed at me in years. It should have destroyed me. Maybe it would have 2 weeks ago. Now it just felt like ammunition. I created a folder on a secure cloud drive. Evidence. Organized it by date, by type, by relevance. Messages in one subfolder. Photos in another. Financial records showing suspicious charges in a third. I was thorough. Obsessive even. Every screenshot labeled and time-stamped. Every piece of proof triple-backed up. At work, I told no one. At home, I played my role perfectly, the oblivious husband, slightly bumbling, easy to manage. I asked Rebecca about her day. Laughed at her jokes. Suggested we watch a movie together on Friday night. She looked at me with something like pity. I've got plans with Amanda on Friday. Girls' night. Amanda being her code for Ethan, I now knew. That's great, I said warmly. You deserve a night out. She actually smiled at me then, pleased that I was being so understanding, so compliant. She had no idea I was counting down. I consulted with a divorce attorney, Daniel Brennan, recommended by a colleague who'd gone through his own messy separation 2 years earlier. Brennan was sharp, efficient, and expensive. He looked through my evidence with the careful attention of someone who appreciated thorough preparation. This is comprehensive, he said, scrolling through the files I'd brought on a USB drive. Almost too comprehensive. When did you say you started gathering this? Oregon is a no-fault divorce state, he explained, so technically the infidelity doesn't impact the legal dissolution. But it does affect optics, perception, and leverage, especially if her employer has any morality clauses or policies about workplace relationships. He did contract work for her company, I said. She was involved in approving his invoices. Brennan's eyes sharpened. That's a conflict of interest. Possibly grounds for an ethics investigation, depending on their internal policies. Cascade Solutions takes ethics very seriously, I said, remembering the lengthy handbook Rebecca had brought home when she was promoted to senior HR consultant. They have zero-tolerance policies about personal relationships affecting professional judgment. Then you have options, Brennan said. The question is, how far do you want to take this? I thought about the slap, the public humiliation, the years of jokes at my expense, the way she'd planned to let me be the one who left so she could maintain her image. All the way, I said. We spent the next hour strategizing. Brennan would file the divorce papers, but we'd wait on serving them. First, I'd execute what he called the controlled disclosure, revealing the affair strategically to specific people with specific goals. On a Thursday evening in early October, Rebecca came home energized in a way I'd learned to recognize, the way she got when she was about to see Ethan. So, she said, setting down her bag with exaggerated casualness, I know this is last minute, but Amanda invited me to this wellness retreat this weekend. It's at some lodge near Mount Hood. Yoga, meditation, digital detox, the whole thing. Amanda again. I wondered if she even remembered which lies she'd told. This weekend? I asked, as if considering. I know, super short notice. But it's supposed to be amazing for stress relief, and God knows I need it after the week I've had. The week she'd had. The irony was almost funny. You should go, I said supportively. When was the last time you took time for yourself? She brightened immediately, relieved she wouldn't have to push harder. Really? You don't mind? Why would I mind? You deserve it. She hugged me then, actually hugged me, warm and grateful. Thank you, Jonathan. You're the best. I hugged her back, breathing in her perfume, memorizing this moment. The last time she'd touched me with affection. The last time I'd let her believe she was in control. What time do you leave? I asked. Friday morning. I'll probably be back Sunday evening. Perfect. I'll hold down the fort. That night, she packed with unusual care. I watched from the doorway as she selected outfits. Not yoga clothes, I noticed, but nice jeans, a low-cut sweater, the lace lingerie I'd bought her last Christmas that she'd never worn for me. Packing fancy for a wellness retreat? I asked lightly. She laughed, not even bothering to lie well. Oh, just in case we go into town for dinner or something. Makes sense. Friday morning arrived cold and gray, typical October weather in Portland. Rebecca was up early, showered and dressed by 7, checking her phone constantly. "Text me if you need anything," she said, kissing my cheek at the door. "I probably won't have service at the lodge, but I'll check messages when I can." "Have fun," I told her. "You deserve this." She smiled, that full, genuine smile I used to love, and left. I watched her car disappear down the street, waited exactly 5 minutes, then opened my laptop. The location tracker showed her heading east on Highway 26, toward Mount Hood like she'd claimed. But I knew better. Ethan had left his house 10 minutes before her, heading the same direction. They were going to the lodge, all right, just not a wellness retreat. I'd found the reservation in her email. Timberline Resort, romantic suite with mountain views, check-in Friday, check-out Sunday. Paid for on a credit card I didn't know she had. I let them get settled. Let them unpack, open champagne, congratulate themselves on another successful deception. Let them feel safe. Then I started making calls. The first went to Brennan. Execute phase 1. All right. I'll file the papers and send the settlement proposal. Give me 2 hours. The second call went to Rebecca's mother, Patricia, who lived in Eugene and who'd always treated me with barely concealed disappointment, like I was somehow not good enough for her daughter. I kept it factual, unemotional. Just dates, evidence, and truth. I sent her selected screenshots, nothing explicit, nothing cruel, just enough to be undeniable. She was silent for a long time after I finished. She hung up without saying goodbye. By noon, I'd made 8 calls. Family members, close friends, people who mattered to Rebecca, whose opinions she cared about. I didn't gossip or editorialize. I just presented facts, sent evidence when asked, and let them draw their own conclusions. Then I sent one carefully crafted email to the HR director at Cascade Solutions. I attached 30 pages of evidence, timeline spreadsheets, message screenshots with timestamps, photos of them together on dates that corresponded with approved invoices. The last message went directly to Ethan Mitchell's phone, the number I'd found in Rebecca's contacts, saved under contractor Yem. No words, no explanation, just a file attachment labeled everything. 600 photos, 400 message screenshots, every hotel receipt, every lie documented, every moment of their affair compiled into one devastating portfolio. I imagined him opening it at the lodge, wine glass in hand, Rebecca beside him. I imagined his face as he scrolled through proof that someone knew everything. Then I put my phone on silent, poured myself a glass of whiskey I'd been saving for a special occasion, and waited. The first response came at 3:15. Patricia called. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was brief, shaking. I confronted her. She admitted everything. "Jonathan, I'm so sorry. She's not who I thought she was." At 4:33, my phone started buzzing continuously. Blocked number. I let it ring. At 4:35, a text from Rebecca's number. "What the fuck did you do?" I stared at it, whiskey warm in my chest, and typed back, "I stopped lying for you." My phone rang immediately. "Rebecca." I declined the call. She tried 6 more times. On the 7th attempt, I answered. "How could you?" she screamed, her voice so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "You sent that shit to my mother? To my friends? To my fucking employer?" "Yes," I said calmly. "You've destroyed my career. My reputation. Everything. I sent them the truth, Rebecca. What they do with it isn't my responsibility. You're a vindictive, petty, pathetic little man." "Maybe," I agreed. "But I'm not a cheater. And I'm not the one who hit their spouse in public." Silence. Heavy breathing. "Check your email. The divorce papers were filed this morning. My attorney sent you the settlement proposal an hour ago." More silence. Then quieter, dangerous. "You're going to regret this." "I regret marrying you," I said. This I feel fine about." I hung up. She called back 17 times. I blocked the number. Ethan tried calling too, from 3 different numbers. Each one got blocked. By Saturday morning, my inbox was full. Rebecca's brother demanding I take everything back. Her father threatening legal action. Friends taking sides, some supporting me, others accusing me of going too far. I read every message. Replied to none. Sunday evening, Rebecca came home. I was sitting in the living room with a cup of tea, reading a book, when I heard her key in the lock. She opened the door slowly, cautiously, like she expected traps. Our eyes met. She looked wrecked. Hair unwashed. Eyes red and swollen. The confident woman who'd left Friday morning had been replaced by someone hollowed out and desperate. "Jonathan, the guest room is available," I said evenly. "My attorney says you're entitled to stay in the house until the divorce is finalized. But we have nothing to discuss." "Please," she whispered. "Can we just talk?" "No. I made a mistake. I was confused. I was unhappy. You slapped me at my birthday party," I interrupted. "You spent months lying to me, sleeping with our neighbor, planning a future without me while pretending everything was fine. Those weren't mistakes, Rebecca. Those were choices." She sank onto the stairs, sobbing. "Everyone hates me. My mom won't talk to me. My job is gone. Ethan won't answer my calls. You've destroyed my entire life." "I didn't destroy anything," I said quietly. "I just stopped helping you hide what you destroyed yourself." I picked up my book and kept reading. She cried on those stairs for 20 minutes before finally dragging herself upstairs to the guest room. I slept soundly for the first time in months. The divorce finalized 4 months later. Rebecca fought for everything: the house, the savings, half my pension. Brennan fought back harder. In the end, she got a small settlement and walked away with her reputation in ruins, and her career stalled. Cascade Solutions investigation confirmed the conflict of interest. She wasn't fired, but she was demoted, transferred to a different department, permanently flagged in her file. Professional recovery would take years, if it came at all. Ethan Mitchell moved away. Someone said Idaho, someone else said Arizona. I didn't care enough to confirm. The neighborhood changed after that. People who'd laughed at Rebecca's jokes at my birthday party suddenly couldn't meet my eyes at the grocery store. A few apologized. Most just avoided me. I sold the house in March. Couldn't stand living in a place saturated with lies and false memories. Bought a smaller condo in the Pearl District, closer to work, with floor-to-ceiling windows and no yard to maintain. I started therapy. Processed 7 years of manipulation, gaslighting, and slow erosion of self-worth. Learned what healthy boundaries looked like. Remembered who I'd been before I'd spent so long making myself smaller to accommodate someone else's ego. Started hiking on weekends. Took a woodworking class. Went on a few dates that didn't lead anywhere, but reminded me what it felt like to be treated with basic respect. Learned to recognize red flags early. Learned that being alone was infinitely better than being with someone who made you feel worthless. And I had finally completely taken my life back. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.